Do you think working class people should be prioritised for jobs, just given a leg up into certain jobs? Get your calls in now on 0207 862 2222. It could be that you felt excluded from a job that you applied for because you are working class. Maybe you were just not posh enough. Maybe it was quite clear when you got to the interview they were all a certain type of person. You could tell by the way what they spoke or what they were wearing or how they treated you, and you knew that you were just not going to get this job. It was going to be somehow considered not appropriate for you and you were not appropriate for it. We're asking because the government has announced plans to prioritise people from lower income families for civil service internships. They say that people will only be able to apply depending on the jobs that their parents did when they were 14. Those with parents who are receptionists, electricians, plumbers, butchers or van drivers will be among those prioritised in an attempt for the government staff to represent the rest of society better. So we wondered if you think that priority should be extended to other businesses when they're hiring people for new roles. Just give working class kids from working class families a boost at getting the job. It's a question, really, isn't it, of social mobility and whether you can engineer it this way. Let's start with you, Sharron. What do you think?
I'm not in favour of this, purely because I think we would be better off spending our money on making sure that everybody has a great education. So when someone goes for a job interview, the person that gets that job is the person who's best for the job. But what we need to make sure is that everybody at the bottom of that pyramid gets those opportunities. You know, I mean, again, I was reading at the weekend papers saying, well, this would apply to a train driver, but not the child of a nurse. How do we decide who is working class? So we're punishing the children because of their parent status. That also doesn't seem right. I mean, there may well be a series of nepotism involved with, you know, civil service internships, which we need maybe to look into. But I think I would rather see the money spent at the bottom to bring everybody up than to say we're going to form some form of discrimination, because this will be discrimination. You are discriminating against somebody in society.
Positive yes. Discrimination, though. Siân, what do you think?
Well, surely, I mean, I know that my daughter's been applying for loads of things, and there's this kind of blind sort of application that you do now anyway, where there's no age, no gender put down, and they literally choose whatever that person should be right for. So why are we even discussing it now in 2025? I mean, everybody should have an equal chance to get a job. Everybody should be seen, not on a Zoom, should go to a meeting and see if they're punctual, see if they're smart, see if they're polite. You know, the whole system's gone to boot.
But what if, though, they have been born into great privilege and advantage? They've been born, let's say, for example, into parents with a stable relationship. They've been born into a family with an income that's reliable and makes them comfortable, a house with books in it, a house where they're spoken to. Maybe they've had opportunities with extracurricular classes and they've learned extra things, so that when they walk into this job interview, they carry themselves in a certain way. They're confident, they're familiar with that kind of conversation. Their parents have coached them a bit, that kind of a thing. Now, I'm not saying that working class parents don't do that. Of course they do that. But what if you're a child that hasn't had those advantages? You know, the idea that, Sharron's saying it should be, everyone should be brought up from the bottom of the pyramid. But, lots of people have had it far tougher than others. This is the bit that's meant to help them, get the way through the door. Maybe it's a very good idea, JJ.
It's a great idea. I benefited from this kind of thing. So I'm from working class backgrounds, as I keep saying. Trying to get into media as a journalist, impossible. I couldn't afford to do the internship because I didn't pay enough money. When I did do an internship, I'd have to do that during the daytime, then go and work in a bar at night time. So I was always tired during the day. I was never going to perform as well as someone who's got rich parents and they can do the internship for 6-7 months without having to worry about having a second job. And then when I eventually got my first national was at the Daily Mirror. I got that because of a scheme where they were getting working class kids who couldn't afford to work for free, and that's how I got my foot in the door. Once I was in there and I was able to do that properly, then then my career took off, and that was great. But I realised with the hiring, it's so much of nepotism, so much who you know. Kids coming into work experience because their dad went to college with this person who's now an editor over here. So those are the ones who were just getting pushed in. They weren't having to fill out forms and come and do interviews. It's like, my kid's on holiday for 2 weeks, they're going to come in and do work experience. That's, unfortunately, I'd love it to be fair and based on how great you are, that's not the reality. So now that I'm an assistant editor at the Express, I make sure when we're getting interns in, I want to know what's your background, where are you from, where did you go to school? Because I want the working class kids to come in and get the equal opportunity and the shot that
And do
a lot
you
of them
ask,
don't
do
get.
you read a newspaper? What paper do you read?
Absolutely.
Do you ask your parents read a paper? Was there a paper delivered to your house? And does
Yeah.
everyone say no, they look at everything online, there's no
It's
such
mostly
thing?
online, yeah.
And then what do you say if they say that? What do you want to work on a newspaper for?
Well, we
For God's
do-
sake, start by reading the damn thing. What
We
is the
do
matter with you?
both. We do print and we do digital. So there's always a space for people. But I think it's massively beneficial in the media industry, at least, where it's a lot of posh people. It's a lot of wealthy kids in the media industry because they can afford to do it. I think in that industry, it's vital we push working class kids and give them an extra boot so they can get up that ladder.
All right. Let's go straight to Christine in Hampshire. What do you think, Christine, about this one?
Yes, hello, Vanessa. As I've already said, I was brought up in a council house with no father back in Blackburn, Lancashire.
Yes.
This was a long time ago, granted, 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But thanks to going to a single-sex school and then on to university, I became a doctor.
Right. Oh, well done. Gosh.
And what I would say is there are certain things that need to be fostered at school. One of them is self-belief. A second one is determination to succeed. If you don't have those, being promoted free gratis to a job, say in the civil service, is not really very helpful. The other thing that I think you need is the people around you, in my case, my mother, to be a responsible parent.
Yeah.
And again, that's lacking for a lot of people.
May I ask you something, Christine? When you say you need self-belief and it needs to be instilled in you at school, how did they instill it in you? What were the sorts of things they said to you at school in the 50s?
Well, they praised you when you did well, and they corrected you when you were being sloppy, or in my case, naughty.
Did you ever feel, as you progressed up the medical ladder, that there were, old boy networks, that it was, old school tie and that kind of a thing, and you were excluded, or were you always able on merit to convince them you were the right person for the job?
It definitely existed, and it still exists today, the old boys network.
Yes.
But because of my personality, I just either ignored it or challenged it and pushed on through.
And you weren't scared that they would think you were a troublemaker, a rebel rouser, that you were a difficult person, Christine? You know how naughty you were at school? Obviously, you're somebody that takes a bit of controlling, aren't you?
Well, that did actually happen to me. I had quite a reputation.
Oh, really?
As I passed through, the medical step ladders, if you like. I did have a reputation for being outspoken, opinionated.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. You heard JJ say now he's in a pretty prestigious and auspicious position, and he gives a helping hand to people from disadvantaged backgrounds because he knows what it feels like. Did you do the same thing? Have you been able to do the same thing in the NHS?
Yes, is the answer to that. I always was sympathetic and listened to people's problems, and where I could, kind of gave them a leg up in that I would introduce them to the right possible consultants or GPs who might take them on.
So you're incredibly helpful to them. So do you think it's right to skew some jobs in the direction of working class applicants, or you don't think so?
Well, I think on balance, no, because as I said at the beginning, you need fire in your belly to succeed. And if you don't have that, being promoted, without merit isn't really going to help you.
I see what you're saying, that you might be given the shove into the job and then just not have what it takes to deliver. I suppose if you don't, you'll be out in your ear pretty damn sharpish, won't you? Christine, thank you. Let's go to Susan in Essex. What do you think, Susan, about this?
Hello, Vanessa.
Hello.
I love your show.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I think it's for working class people to be helped? Yes, I do, where it's appropriate. But I also think there are some of those other young people who have been through university, who've been to different schools, private schools, where their parents have worked hard to put them there.
Yeah.
They should not be shut out of getting jobs as well. There's a lot of prejudice. You know, if you speak Queen's English, you're posh. If you go to a private school, you're posh. When my daughter went to Cambridge, she was the first in our family. And when she went for a job with other graduates, the first thing the man said to them, listen, you Cambridge and Oxford graduates, you're all tossers. I mean, what a thing to say.
Gosh, how ridiculous.
Was it me?
You wouldn't say that. Oh my gosh. I was exactly like, I apologise for that language if anyone's offended, but Susan was saying it to say how offensive it was. But I was in exactly the same position as your daughter, Susan, first one in our family ever to go to Cambridge. And my dad had a one-man band underwear business, you know, with a warehouse in Bounds Green full of, you know, polyester blinking pyjamas. And I certainly wasn't posh. I may sound as if I am, but I'm not at all. Absolute tosh, isn't it? Susan, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to David in Glamorgan. What do you think, David? Should they help working class people into certain jobs by giving them an extra shove?
No.
Why not?
Definitely not.
Tell me why.
Because the country needs the best people doing the job. They must be able to improve the country. It's not a question of individuals. They can compete for the jobs, but it's the best one who gets it.
And the idea, David, the idea that it's not a level playing field. You heard JJ say, you know, with certain internships, for example, he couldn't afford to do them because they weren't paid. So he couldn't even get his toe in the door because he needed to earn money, whereas wealthier kids could get their toe in the door. Then they've hoovered up those jobs. Doesn't mean they're going to be better at them. It just means they were in a, you know, privileged position, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and it's wrong. The thing is that it must be... everything must be merit-based to get there. I mean, look at the MPs we've got. Not one of them is qualified as a politician. They come from ragbag accountancy, legal firms, nothing to do with governing people or the country. And they are expected to do it. As a result, we are spending a small fortune on advisors. Because the people we've elected or has been put the limited choice we've had is not capable of doing the job.
JJ?
Now, that is...
David, but then...
So I say everything has got to be merit-based.
David, based on what you're saying, though... David, based on what you're saying, we should then have more working class people becoming politicians, because why should someone who has grown up very wealthy, never struggled, doesn't know what it's like to have no electricity, doesn't know what it's like to go without food, why should they be in charge of saying, well, OK, if you're on benefits, this is how much money you're going to survive on for the week, for the month? If they've never been in that situation of knowing what it's like to be poor, how can they then make decisions on behalf of the poor? By what you're saying, we should then have more people who are working class being pushed in to politics because they know what it's like to live as a working class person. They're the best people to then help the working class, not someone who's never experienced it.
It's not a question of helping the working class, it's a question of helping the country.
I suppose, David, the other thing you can say is that when people have done nothing but be political all their lives, that's their whole job, people feel they've got no grasp at all on real life. All they've ever done is be in that kind of Westminster bubble. So we don't really want people who know nothing at all about life, but only about being politicians. Not keen on that. Then if they do a different job, then you say they're not qualified to govern or to lead, which is kind of also true. But that's what all the SPADs are for, isn't it?
Wouldn't it be good if we could offer some better apprenticeships, though? So instead of expecting people to do internships for nothing, we had a better apprenticeship programme. It's one of the things that we have definitely lost with pushing everyone to universities. You know, being able to teach people on the job and giving them enough money so that they can survive, but at the same time then their passion and enthusiasm to learn that profession is enabled.
But Sharron, what stops those apprenticeships still going to the wealthy kids who've got the connections because their parents are already in the
But you said that you couldn't take the job because you didn't do the money, right? So if that money was there for you to do it, then you could have taken it.
But,
the application, would you?
Yeah, but exactly. If me getting that apprenticeship, if it was paying, great. But there's still, if, for example, in my example with journalists, there's still editors who are letting their nephews, nieces,
which is nepotism,
friends,
which is a different thing altogether.
Which unfortunately, I think that is part of it. So the working class kids can do an apprenticeship as a builder. You can learn a trade as a.
But I would like to see the nepotism gone. But I would like to see that we still employ.
It's never going to go though, is it? Everyone's going to.
I know, but that is something that we should pay more attention to then, maybe, rather than just saying we're actually going to discriminate against kids that maybe come from a background which has instilled in them, a really good work ethic, and we're just going to go, no, we're not going to give you the job because we're going to give it to this person over here.
Sharron, with your daughter, you're both actresses.
Yes.
Have you been able to kind of get her in a bit?
What's interesting, I wanted to help her, but she said no.
Did she?
Yeah. Well, no, because she hasn't risen as high as perhaps she could have got a better agent if she'd listened to me. She didn't want any help at all. It's very interesting. She was very strong about that. And I think she realises now, at 30 tomorrow, that she should have said yes, because my partner's a film producer as well, and she could have come to some nice parties and just met people.
But she didn't even go to the parties.
No.
Well, she must have learned from you, though. She must have learned, surely.
No, she just
Love
got
a
married,
party.
doesn't she?